Welcome to our video lesson on converting SI units. Now, SI units are the same thing as metric units. Before we can talk about converting them, I need to make sure you know how many units there are equivalent to each other. So, for example, 1 kilometer is equal to 1,000 meters. And if you look on a meter stick, you can see that 1 meter is equal to 100 centimeters. And then if you look on a ruler, you can see that 1 centimeter is equal to 10 millimeters. So it's important that you know these ratios before we get started. An interesting thing is it goes from 1,000 to 100 to 10, and each time we're losing a 0. All right, a stat tells us that the distance from Earth to the moon is 38,440,300,000 centimeters. My first question for you is there a better way we could write this? Hopefully you're thinking, yes, there is. How about we write it in kilometers? Okay, great. We know we're going to write this in kilometers. That makes sense to me. Before we can write it in kilometers, we need to know how many kilometers there are. Sorry, we need to know how many centimeters there are in 1 kilometer. All right, well, if you think of what we just did, we know that 1 kilometer is equal to 1,000 meters, and that 1 meter is equal to 100 centimeters. So to figure out how many centimeters there are in a kilometer, we are going to multiply 100, because there's 1,000, because there's 1,000 meters, and in each of those 1,000 meters there's 100 centimeters. So we'll multiply 1,000 times 100. When we do that, when you're multiplying like this and you have all the zeros, you can actually just write that many zeros after the 1. So we have 1 and then 5 zeros. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and I have my comma here. So that means that 1 kilometer is equal to 100,000 centimeters. Now, because I'm trying to figure out the distance from the Earth to the moon in kilometers, I'm going to write a let statement. I'm going to say let x represent the distance between the Earth and moon in kilometers. And then I'm going to set up a proportion. I know you've seen these before. So we start with 38,440,300,000 centimeters, and I want to know how many kilometers that is, so I'll put x kilometers, is equal to, now I have centimeters on the top here, so I'm going to put centimeters over here on the top, and I know that 1 kilometer is equal to 100,000 centimeters. So I'm going to write 100,000 here. Now hopefully you've solved things like this before, and you might have your own way to do it. The way I do it is cross multiplication. So because this is a proportion, I know that these two multiplied together have to be equal to these two multiplied together. So I can rewrite this as an equation that says, let's look at another example. This example says a worm measures 0.069 meters. How can I write this in a more appropriate unit? I think a more appropriate unit would be centimeters. And I know that there are 100 centimeters in 1 meter. So that's the conversion that I'm going to need for this. My let statement would be let x represent the worm length in centimeters. So to set this up, I know that 0.069 meters, and I want to solve for what that is, so x centimeters, is equal to 1 meter and 100 centimeters. So I know that I can use cross multiplication, and these two, if I multiply them together, are equal. So my equation would be 0.069 times 100 equals 1 times x. So x is equal to, so 1 times x is just x, whatever 0.069 times 100 would be. Well, we have 2 zeros in my 100, so that means that my decimal will be moved 2 places, 1, 2. So that means that 6.9 centimeters is equal to x, or the worm is 6.9 centimeters in length. And I can picture that a lot more easily than I can 0.069 meters. Now it's your turn. Try doing all of these questions on your own. Make sure you write them down in your notebook.